In this video, I'm going to take a look at a new bike gadget called the Restuvus by a brand called Hobo Pieces that allows you to attach these traditional style transverse saddlebags on your modern saddle. Find out what I think in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into things like randonneuring, gravel, cycling, basically the supple life, then you have found your people and consider subscribing. So I've been a longtime fan of the traditional Carradee style saddlebag. I know bike packing style seat bags have been all the rage recently, but really my heart is in these traditional style saddlebags. And one big issue that I run to and that you guys probably run into as well is the modern saddle doesn't have saddle loops. So unless you're riding a Brooks saddle or a Velo Orange equivalent or another traditional style, typically leather saddle, you're not going to have saddle loops to attach these bags to your bike. There are a couple options out there. I think Velo Orange had these little saddle loop things that you would attach to the individual saddle rails, but they always seemed a little flimsy. But now we have a great solution from a new company called Hobo Pieces with their product that they're calling the Restuvus. So I'm assuming allowing the rest of us that don't have Brooks saddles to use these saddlebags. So the product itself is pretty simple. It's CNC aluminum with some stainless steel hardware that simply clamps onto your saddle rails. In terms of technical specs, they suggest not using it with more than 20 pounds. And one thing to really keep in mind about the Restuvus, it's more of an attachment point than it is a support. So there's nothing that's gonna be supporting the bag from the bottom. So if you run a small bike and you have problems with your saddlebag hitting your tire, this isn't really gonna solve it. You're gonna have to use it with a support or with a rack. A couple things I love about the Restuvus is that it's just nicely machined. It actually feels like something that Paul Components would create. It also comes in a variety of colors, so if you want to get your bike kit on point, you can do that. Attaching it is pretty straightforward and easy. There's a bar that you kind of slip over the saddle rails and you just clamp it down as high as you can. When compared to the Brooks Cambium, which has kind of integrated saddle rails, the Restuvus does sit a little bit lower. So if you have kind of tight clearances already, it's not going to really help you out in that respect. So I've also messed around with the Restuvus on my commuter bike where I totally don't have any saddle to rail clearance, but I do have a rear rack. And using the Restuvus in that way, it just allows me to attach it to the bike, and most of the support is from the rear rack. So even if you do ride smaller frames and smaller bikes, you can still use the Restuvus as simply an attachment point and not kind of a load-bearing attachment for the saddlebag. So let's move on to the things I like and dislike about the Restuvus so far. So I love that it's nicely machined and it's aesthetically pleasing. Cool that there are color options. So if you're really anal about matching your bike, you can do that. I also like that it just works. There's not a whole lot of parts to break. It's not really difficult to install, and it works just as it looks like it should. So I know a bunch of you are thinking, if you want to run a saddlebag, why not just get a Brooks? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. One, you might be vegan and you don't want to ride a leather saddle. Another reason is maybe the Brooks saddle shapes just don't fit you. And this is probably my main motivation for using it myself. I used to use Brooks a lot, but I've kind of fallen out of love with it, and I prefer other saddles instead, something like the Specialized Toupee, a couple of the Physique saddles. I just tend to get along with those shapes better right now, and they don't have saddle loops, so this is a nice way to add this attachment point. Probably the biggest con, the biggest roadblock for a lot of people is going to be the price. The Restuvus is a little spendy. It comes in at 70 bucks. But if you think about it, that's still cheaper than a Brooks saddle, and you get to use whatever saddle you already like. So it's a big upfront investment, but it will last. It will work with the saddles that you like, and it's pretty easy to move between bike to bike. So that's it for this video. Let me know if you guys have any other questions about the Restuvus. I'll be sure to answer them below. And hey, if you guys like this content, be sure to consider supporting it. Check out the PayPal links below. It really keeps the channel going, and I mean that seriously. So until next time, like, share, subscribe, and keep the supple side down.